Back here on Jiggy Jag TV. Also check us out at jiggyjagtv.com. I'm Jigman Freud, and we are here in the historic McPherson Opera House. Truly an honor to be here. As everyone knows, I grew up in McPherson, so this is kind of a thrill for me. Also, it's kind of a thrill. We're going to be speaking with the conductor of the Glenn Miller Orchestra. I'm going to get the heck out of the way and let the people with talent talk.
True talent,
So
yes.
jump in there, my friend. Explain who you are and how long you've been doing this.
My name is Larry O'Brien. I'm the musical director of the Glenn Miller Orchestra, and I've been doing it for 25 years now.
Now, tell me about the 75-year history of Glenn Miller. It's one of the few bands that have stayed together for 75 years.
Yeah, it's remarkable in a way, and there was a 5-year period during which there was no Glenn Miller Orchestra. That was after Tex Beneke gave up the name in 1950. From then till 1956, there was no Glenn Miller Orchestra. This orchestra was started in June 6th of 1956 as a direct result of the movie The Glenn Miller Story, starring Jimmy Stewart, June Allison, etc.
Now, the Glenn Miller Orchestra has a huge tradition. It is amazing series of music and talent, and the decades you guys have been around. How has the music changed over the years?
Well, the music's changed somewhat, but mostly it's in its core, it's the same. It's the same as it was back then. What we have done, though, is we've kind of modernized a few things. For example, we have an arrangement in the book of Danny Boy, which is very popular in Japan, where we'll be in November. And in the original arrangement, the brass are in cup mutes, as a lot of the arrangements were back then. I've modernized that somewhat. I've taken the trumpets and put them in flugelhorns, and I've taken the trombones and putting them in what we call the derbies or the hats. And in so doing, I've created a whole new mellow sound, I think, and gives it a whole new meaning. And our audiences seem to really enjoy it. In fact, when we play it, sometimes people start sobbing because it's a very touching tune, and our arrangement is very poignant.
Now, being a kind of a historian and being involved with the Glenn Miller Orchestra for the years of time that you've been involved with it, Glenn Miller was as popular as anyone on the planet as far as music when he passed away, correct?
Well, yeah, actually he was, and he gave up a budding commercial career in 1942 to join the service, to serve his country in any way that he could. And he, in so doing, created another legend beyond the one that he had already created. He formed a military orchestra that toured all over the United States, sold millions of dollars in war bonds, which we helped to use to finance the war back then. What an idea, huh? and also eventually went over to England and played for not only the English people, but all of the Allied troops who were over there as well, and raised the morale of both groups tremendously with his music.
Now, you guys, you mentioned earlier just a second ago you're going to be going to Japan. How do other nations embrace the music and the legacy of the Glenn Miller Orchestra?
Well, in our byline we say we're the most popular band in the world, and that's true. We're the most popular everywhere. They have a Glenn Miller Society in South Africa, or they had, and we used to travel extensively. This band traveled behind the Iron Curtain when there was such a thing. And ever since 9/11, though, our travel has been restricted pretty much to Canada and Japan.
Yeah. Now, doing the songs and having all the players, how do you guys select the musicians to be in the Glenn Miller Orchestra? Do you do auditions? Do people send you
We do auditions,
demos?
both. Yeah, we do both. People audition. We prefer they audition live because then we can hear actually what they can do. When they send a tape, invariably, young people today send the wrong kind of material. They send stuff that doesn't tell us anything as to whether they would fit with the orchestra or not. Yeah. So the live audition is still our best bet, and also personal recommendation. All of the fellows in the orchestra have gone to music schools or schools that had some sort of a music program, and they met people in that, or went to school with people there who sometimes they think would fit into this orchestra. We take their recommendations very seriously, and still ask them to send us a demo of some sort or a live audition. But that's one of the ways that we get people. And We, at one time, had a waiting list of people to come with the orchestra. And we don't have any geographic base as far as our members are concerned. At one time or another, we'd have a lot of guys from Ohio, or we'd have a lot of guys from Pennsylvania, or that. Right now, we have a really very wide mix of people from different areas. For example, my lead alto player is from Chicago, my lead trombone player is from Alaska, and my lead trumpet player is from Florida.
Wow.
So
it's an eclectic mix.
You can't get any more diverse than that.
Now, with the Glenn Miller Orchestra being around as long as it has been, and you've been involved with it personally for a while, you mentioned you've modified some of the music and things of that nature. How many arrangers do you have for music and things?
Well, we have a couple of people in the orchestra that write arrangements, but right now, due to the economic downturn, we're not adding any new material to the book. We have so much material that we don't need to add any new stuff, actually. We're still pulling stuff out that some of it has laid dormant there for many, many years. Yeah. For example, when we play Clarinda, where Glenn was born, they request that when we play there, that we play some of the more obscure arrangements, some of the things that the people don't hear all the time on the radio or in performance, because all of the bands that come internationally to that festival play the hits. When we play them, it's too much of a good thing, and so they request that we do things that are a little bit off the beaten path. When I research new material to play in Clarinda, I came upon two arrangements by Billy May that were just scores, no parts. When I pulled them out of the library and they sent them to me, I saw it. There were no parts. They were pristine. They were like the pages had never been ruffled before, and it didn't have a title on it or anything. There's no record of it any place in the Glenn Miller archives except by those numbers that are our catalog numbers. Well, the one arrangement, I looked at the score and it looked pretty good, and it had never been played by anybody, by Glenn, by anybody who preceded me. Wow. Never been played. So we copied it and we played it, we rehearsed it, and we were electrified by it. It was just a great piece of material. And to have that lay in the library unused all of those years is almost a crime against music.
It had never been recorded?
Never been recorded, never been played, never been rehearsed.
Amazing.
There were no parts. So, you know, there's still gold there waiting to be mined. And we just recently pulled an arrangement out, Are You Jumpin' Jack, which we're going to do tonight, which is a Bill Finnegan thing. And it was one of the things that you could hear on broadcasts from time to time, but it wasn't really that popular. You know, you go to a Glenn Miller fan and say, Are You Jumpin' Jack? And most of them wouldn't know what you're talking about. But it's amazing to me that the band was only in existence really 4 years and change, and it's amazing to me the amount of not only music that they generated, but also the amount of recordings that they did.
Wow.
It's unbelievable.
Well, I have one final question. It's truly been an honor speaking with you, sir. You guys are phenomenal. I love the music and everything. My final question, if Glenn Miller was around today, or we could go back in a time machine and bring him back, what would he say about the fact that you guys are still keeping his music alive, and that over 75 years, when you say Glenn Miller Orchestra, people know exactly who you're talking about?
I think he'd be very pleased, for one thing, but I think he'd also be a little sad that we didn't take the music forward. You know, he would have, certainly. If you listen to the Air Force recordings, you can hear that he was modernizing the band already. He was doing things with it that would have taken it in a different direction, and I think it would sound quite a bit different than it does today. He'd still play the hits, like all of the bands play their hits. Harry James still played Cherry Beer Bim, you know, and Charlie Barnett still played Cherokee. Yeah. But they went on. You know, they didn't stay locked in that time frame, and I think he would have gone on, certainly would have gone on too.
Excellent.
It's an honor. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
As I always say at the end of an interview, the music will speak for itself.
Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Sir. Appreciate it. Let's go watch more here on Jiggy Jag TV.